truly shocking video showcasing and at least highlighting the issue and the problem of violence affecting pupils in our schools. With that, we want to say good evening, South Africa, and welcome to Expressions. I know you know this by now because Expressions is the place where you air your views. Kina hostelina Jacqueline Mapala.
Now coming to you live this Thursday evening. Now, Jackie, there's a huge question this evening. We ask, are our children really safe? This evening we also ask, is the current state of affairs in most of our public schools a cause for concern?
Definitely. Hopefully it's something that we'll be able to answer by the end of the show, because Expressions, we know that this is a serious issue. But we went out to the streets to find out what you have to say about this topic. Take a look at this.
The Department of Education must do something. Yet I know there is this program that they do. They offer counseling to teachers. But me as a teacher, I don't know the right channels on how to follow those, but there is.
We as teachers, we cannot do anything. We depend on the government. There are learners who behave very wrongly to teachers. And then I don't know about those ones. Like, that behavior is not good for the school. We find that it's not only the teachers that are abusing the learners. Even the learners are abusing us as teachers.
Maybe they had problems, maybe they don't like the teacher or the subject they don't understand, or how the teacher treats them. So they think better way they could speak badly about the teacher. So the teacher could say these children are problems.
Most of us, if I'm angry, I don't want to talk to other people. So I take out my anger to children.
There's many ways you can discipline a learner than beating.
I think parental involvement is lacking a lot, because you find that these things come from at home, whereby these learners are not disciplined, and when they come to schools, it becomes a problem. We don't know what to do. But if we as teachers and the parents could work hand in hand, at least we would have better citizens tomorrow.
Now, to take this discussion further in studio, I'm joined by a spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, Troy Martins. Good evening and welcome to Expressions.
Good evening and thanks so much for the invitation.
Great to have you here. And if you're wondering where my co-host Jacqueline Mapala is, she's chilling in the social media space to get in all your comments there. Just make sure we are Kumana Nati Pela on Facebook as well as on Twitter. Now, Troy, without any further ado, let's get this conversation started. Now, it's clear that there is a problem in our schools, but the question is, what are you doing about it as a department?
I think first and foremost, we must just say that the videos like the one that we have just seen is absolutely disgusting. And the fact that someone can actually do that to a child and leave a child lying on the side of the street crying like that, I mean, it's absolutely shocking. But we're actually doing a lot in this area, and I want to stress that this is not the norm in our schools. We need to stress that there are many thousands of dedicated teachers. You know, we have over 26,000 schools in the system, and it is these rotten eggs that we're happy to root out. And one of the things that I think is really helping us, especially to monitor this type of thing when corporal punishment is being used. You know, corporal punishment was outlawed over 20 years ago. But we're happy that learners are now empowered through social media and through technology, and they're now recording this. So it really holds those teachers to account and enables us to really act more swiftly on these issues. But that aside, we're also developing, well, we have developed, it was approved for public comment, to be published for public comment just last week, a protocol that we actually developed with different stakeholders like COSAS, like the teacher trade unions, and it's a protocol on the abolishment of corporal punishment in our schools. And it really sets out guidelines for reporting mechanisms, for what needs to happen, like punishment for those teachers who are found guilty. It also even talks about the role of parents, because I know one of the interviews that we have just seen also spoke about the important role that parents need to play. And this is something that teachers often stress. Our parents need to get involved in the school community and really not outsource the disciplining of their children to schools.
That's a very interesting point that you're making, and one would actually be shocked to find out that this is also a double-sided coin. It's not just mostly violence that are on the pupils, but sometimes the roles become reversed and teachers also face violence, and we've seen this in certain instances as well. Do you think that there is a deeper underlying problem here?
I think you need to remember that schools are really microcosms of our society, and the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, we live in a very violent society, and this is what we're seeing manifest in our schools. We're seeing ill discipline, we're seeing alcohol and drug abuse taking a grip on our schools, we're seeing social issues play out. You know, the last time I was here, we spoke about teenage pregnancy, and these are all issues that are related to bigger societal issues and societal problems that manifest in our schools. But that said, at no stage can we condone or tolerate any kind of violence, and whether it's perpetuated by learners or by teachers, it needs to be known that it is absolutely unacceptable and will not be tolerated. And now with the emergence of technology, it's more likely that there will be a video that emerges, and we are taking these things very seriously.
Absolutely, everything is on everyone's fingertips now.
Exactly.
But now that with that point that you're making, it's clear as well that we cannot really teach our children what we ourselves cannot practice. You know, when you're going to be a parent at home and you just don't know how to handle a simple disagreement, or maybe when you take a child to a shopping mall and you have a minor disagreement, maybe with the cashier, for instance, and this is a child that still needs to process this and go and play it out at school. So clearly there's a lot of work that also needs to be done on that half.
You know, we need to remember that we're dealing in an environment with, well, teachers are professionals and they're dealing with adolescents who are often going to be cheeky, they're going to talk back, and they just need to know that no matter what happens or no matter how disrespectful, and I'm not giving leeway for learners to be disrespectful, but we need to know that violence is not the answer. And this is when it's important that the school community comes into play. When you have issues of ill discipline, that's when the parents need to be called in and to sit down and come up with a solution between the school and the parents on how to move forward.
Combined effort, indeed.
Combined effort.
Now, we're discussing the current state of our public schools, and with the recent spate of violence, we just need to find out ukuthi ngabe yini inkinga. And of course, xhumana nathi on our phone line on 011-714-8052. Jacqueline's on standby with your social media when we return.
Absolutely shocking, truly heart-wrenching. And of course, we're talking about this also important topic of violence in our schools. You saw in that video, I mean, really, I think it really speaks truth to the poll question that we're asking you this evening, and that is, are kids safe in their places of learning? To help me unpack this issue, I'm joined with me here in the social media corner by Uthabo Macheka, who is president of SASCO. Welcome to Expressions.
Thank you.
I mean, mean, you can hear I'm a little bit rattled because of just that video. But of course, Kochaye, we want you to be part of the conversation. And I believe I've got a caller on the line.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, am I speaking to Sabelo?
Yes, yes.
Sabelo, you saw that video. I'd like to know what your comment is on this topic that we're discussing this evening.
Oh, okay. Thanks very much for this opportunity. But first, I must say that it is quite disturbing to see that corporal punishment is still implemented in schools. And we know very well that it has been abolished long time ago. But we must say that teachers who are continuing to implement corporal punishment, they must be disciplined accordingly, because it is out of law. It is not in law of South Africa. So we must condemn it in strongest terms. But also, I must say that there is also a serious issue in schools whereby even the conduct, the issues of moral behavior of learners is quite questionable, because they also have an input on what is happening, because some of them, they are so mischievous in such a way that they can't even be controlled. So we need to also find mechanisms, not only fighting teachers, but we need also to find ways on how do we punish, how do we deal with the behavior of learners, because teachers are finding it hard also to instill discipline, because there are also clips whereby we see learners beating teachers. What are we saying about that? So those are serious issues which raise a serious problem in terms of our morals in school. We know very well that there are core subjects which were implemented before. Like, you look at the issue of religious in school, where it teaches about moral behavior and all that. All those things have been abolished. They started this curriculum which teaches learners on how to make sex and all those things. But
so, Sabelo, we get the gist of exactly what you're saying, to say that there are two sides to the story. It's not just the teachers who are a problem. I think also we need to take into account the fact that the pupils as well also participate in the very violence that we want to bring an end to. So, but thank you very much for your comment. I want to bring you in, Dabo, into this conversation. I mean, it's still disturbing. It's almost impossible for someone to watch that and not feel disturbed or react to that. I mean, what is your initial reaction from just watching that?
I'm very irritated about the barbaric behavior of teachers in our schools. It shows that our learners are no longer safe. And we think that when our learners are at schools, teachers are their own parents. Now, we are no longer sure as if whether our child are safe when they are at schools. And we know that corporal punishment has been long ago being abolished in our schools. Firstly, we know that the Department of Education is the one that started this thing. Many years ago, they used corporal punishment as a disciplinary measure. Now, when time goes on, it went to an extent that teachers are no longer disciplining our learners, but they are taking their frustrations on top of our learners. Now, it went far into sexual abuse. We get incidents like the incident that just happened in Kuruman, where teachers which suffers from high libido have been abusing our learners sexually. Now, teenage courses were very worried whether if our child are very safe, our learners are very safe in schools.
But I mean, I think it's also very important for us to at least try and make an effort to show a complete picture. I mean, are teachers just simply using corporal punishment to discipline kids? What's happening with the psyche of the teachers? I mean, we saw with the video there where one of the teachers was saying, you know, kids do get out of control. What are we meant to do? So what is there in place to ensure that teachers are able to get order and discipline within classes?
Now we must understand that we must always ensure that there is a relationship between teachers, learners, and parents. Now, in most of the schools, there's no longer a relationship between a teacher and a learner and a parent. That is why a learner and a teacher, they are the same, actually. Teachers see our learners as wives, learners see our teachers as different people.
But that's very scary, hey, when we start saying that, you know, this is the kind of dynamics, or at least relationships that are happening between teachers and learners, where you're seeing each other as wives and husbands. I mean, that's scary, but I want to bring somebody else. I want to bring Thabo from Pretoria on board in this conversation. Hello and welcome to Expressions, Thabo.
Good evening, Mimo. How are you?
I'm good. I want to hear your comments on this. I'm getting scared when they're saying these weird relationships that students and teachers and parents are having. What is your say on this topic?
Fortunately, I'm from a school in the Eastern Cape, in the township. And it happened that I went to university. It happened that I worked in the Gauteng province. Now, there is a societal problem here that is affecting us as Africans. You see, there is a difference with the approach of kids. My child is just going here in Centurion private school. Parents go to meetings and parents account, whether you are black or white or Indian there. The same behavior of parents is not what we see in the townships. So it cannot start from the teacher, it cannot start by the learner, but even the parents, our parents there in the township. If you look now, the teacher was beating the child in the class. You can see that lady is also destroyed, that very same African teacher. You know, because that is the upbringing of that lady. She grew up like that. She was punished. So it's a very big issue, guys. It really needs to be dealt with. It's scary. You know, I can't imagine how these kids who are going to these schools in the townships are going to be something tomorrow, because a child is a criminal in a process. A teacher is also somebody who's breaking the law.
So I mean, you're saying that it's a vicious cycle, and a vicious cycle that is undermining the potential and the future of young kids in our townships. But I mean, we definitely want to unpack this issue a little bit more. But I want to bring you into this conversation. I mean, he's really painting a very scary picture around the consequences, possibly the generational consequences of us not being able to address this issue of punishment and at least violence against students. I mean, what would you like to say around issues like that?
Tina's causes were very clear. We are saying all teachers that are practicing corporal punishment in our schools, they must be stripped off from their profession of teaching.
So they must be fired, according to you?
They must be fired, and they must never teach again.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, you heard it yourself, Mobuhedi Kochaye. If teachers are actually violent against students, they must be fired. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Mawut Sahir Nati. We're discussing this very important problem that is amongst some of our public schools, and I'm still joined by Troy Martins, who is the spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education. Troy, now let's demystify this quickly. Now, if there's a parent that is sitting at home right now saying that I'm not really affected, my children behave, but the reality is that at some point these worlds will collide. How do we bridge the gap and ensure that everybody is able to deal with the situation?
You know, I think whether your child behaves as well-disciplined or ill-disciplined, I think it's still important that parents get involved in the school community. I mean, there's many ways that they can do this. We've got the school governing body elections that are coming up next year. So we'd like to encourage parents to really look out for the notices and to really take advantage of that opportunity, because whether it's the school code of conduct, the school dress code, the school disciplinary code, those are all determined by the school governing body. And this is why it's so important, if you want to play an active role in your child's schooling, and we obviously would encourage that in the strongest possible terms, it's important that parents participate, avail their time, and really ensure that they go and speak to that teacher, you know, build that relationship. Like Thabo was saying, it's so important.
Okay, now before we quickly go to Jackie on social media, and of course I do anticipate that we will be getting some comments that say we were beaten at school and we turned out just fine. Would you agree that this is a case of solving violence with violence?
Well, that never works. You can't teach young people to deal with their problems. They need to resort to violence. I mean, if you and Jackie are having a disagreement, you're not going to react violently to her. It's not acceptable. So why is it acceptable in a school setting? It should never be acceptable. It's not acceptable whether it's in a relationship, and it's not acceptable if it's in a school. So that is not the way we want to teach our learners how to deal with issues and with problems. We need to teach them actual problem-solving skills, and we need to ensure that we use alternative methods of discipline. There's so many now. We're actually working with UNICEF on a program to look at alternative methods of discipline, and these include positive reinforcement, positive forms of discipline, rather reward-based as opposed to punishment-based. And these are things that are working.
Thank you
in other
so
places.
much for joining us. This is Troy Martin, spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Jackie. This has been a very informative conversation this evening.
Very informative. And I think, obviously, the main points that are coming out is that violence is not the key to solving any of the problems that we're facing currently right now. So, yeah. So we're going to leave the viewers with some music. Again, a big thank you to our guest, Mobwiri Kauhai. I really hope that today gave you a lot of insight around how we can solve this issue of violence in our school. With that, we want to sign off with a beautiful music piece.
Yeah. Do you have a spectacular evening going forward? Cutting Edge is up next. Take care.
Ciao. Bye.
What would I do if you left me? I can't even think of a second when you're not here. What we have is sent from above. It's not natural that you're not here. It feels so cold in my bed, 'cause you're not here now. When I said I loved you, baby, I did. Oh, come back to me. Oh, I'm lost without you. Wherever you are, I hope you hear me. Baby, I'm lost without you. Oh, I'd give anything to have. Ever since the day that you left me, all of my days have been empty. I've tried and tried to move on, but you're engraved in me. Our favorite song plays on the radio, and I think of you, baby, but you're not here now. When I said I loved you,